Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name's Radha, and I'm here with our family of seekers. We're reading through the Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. We're really diving in deep, really trying to learn its essence and also its relevance to our lives. So we're here every Monday, Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and we've been at it for about a year and a half now, going through the Gita. And today we are going to start with, let me see, 23, text 23. So we're in chapter 8 today, and we're going to start with text 23. We're slowly wrapping up this chapter. I think this week we'll finish this chapter. And this chapter's been really beautiful and sobering, right? Because we've been talking a lot about remembering Krishna, and especially at the time of death. Especially at the time of death and what that means for us. And today we're going to get a little bit deeper. What we're doing here, if we remember in chapter 6, we talked a lot about the Ashtanga yoga practice. And now we're in chapter 8. Chapter 7, we really kind of walked through the bhakti-yoga practice. Now we're in chapter 8, and Krishna's kind of going to compare the Ashtanga yoga practice and the bhakti yoga practice. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about the Ashtanga yoga practice, which is really interesting. It's really interesting. But we're ultimately going to learn why bhakti is the recommended path for this age. But before we start, Shakti, can you say our prayers for us?
It would be my honor. Om Jnana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kara Mayam Dandati Sva Pandatikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Paraharmalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sarvatam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Vitams Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancha Garungi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Prananami Hari Priye Panchakapa Tiruviyasha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Bhavembhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Guru Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Okay, so we are starting with text 23, chapter 8, text 23. I will share my screen, and Stella, when you're ready, can you read that for us?
Yes, yes. O best of the Bharatas, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the last section of this chapter. Then again, the primary focus in this chapter is remembrance. And so this section that we're coming into, like I said earlier, is remembrance is why remembrance by bhakti yoga is easier than by Ashtanga yoga. So we're comparing kind of the different paths. So we're entering into this final section, and the main theme that runs through this chapter is remembrance, remembering Krishna at the time of death. And so just keep remembering that. When you hear chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, know that that is the main theme. So up until now, Krishna has explained how this remembrance leads to liberation. And now he's going to describe something quite mystical, actually. He's going to describe the different paths that the soul can take when it leaves the body. So here Krishna is telling Arjuna, let me explain the times at which a yogi departs and doesn't return, and the time at which he does. Now, again, this is talking about Ashtanga yoga. This is talking about the other paths of yoga besides bhakti, because we know in bhakti, we don't have to worry about when or how we leave our bodies, right? In bhakti, if you're fully surrendered to God, then you trust that whenever that moment comes, Krishna will take care of everything. And because of that trust, you can leave peacefully, easily and happily returning to God. But for those who aren't fully devoted, who rely more on other spiritual paths like karma yoga, jnana yoga, hatha yoga, it's different. Their success can depend on timing and method. Unless they're deeply perfected, they might have to leave their body at a specific favorable moment to ensure that they don't come back into the cycle of birth and death. And I was kind of trying to think of an analogy to kind of demonstrate the difference here between bhakti and these other paths. And it's kind of like trying to get into one of those new super popular restaurants where you have to like book your reservations weeks in advance. You have to show up at the exact time, and if you miss it, you're out of luck. But imagine someone who's best friends with the owner, or the owner's mother, or the owner's boyfriend or girlfriend. They don't need a reservation. They can just show up anytime, and the owner will personally welcome them in. So this is the difference between the yogi who depends on perfect timing and circumstances is to kind of arrange it perfectly for it to work out for them, versus the devotee who depends on Krishna completely. And the difference here between the two is love. When there's love and relationship, the rules don't apply because Krishna himself makes sure that you get home. So this is the difference, like at a high level, between these other paths and bhakti. But Krishna gives us these other paths because not everybody is ready for full-on relationship with God in that way. And some people are still kind of captivated by material energy and want to enjoy. Want to enjoy. And that's okay. That's okay. Krishna gives us paths to meet us where we're at. But it's important that we understand that depending on where we're at and what path we're following is going to greatly determine our destination at the end of this life. So this is good. This is a good, question for us to ask ourselves, like in our own spiritual lives. Are we trying to book reservations to control the process? Or are we deepening our relationship with the owner, trusting that love itself grants entry? Like booking reservations, like are we trying to do everything perfect? Like follow the rule book? And there's nothing wrong with that. Like at the same time, the rules are there for a reason. It's good to have some respect for, the rules of whatever spiritual practice you're following. But at the same time, let's not forget that the most important part is deepening our relationship with the owner, with the essence, right? That's the essence, is that relationship. And that's the whole purpose of the rules. So a truly advanced yogi can consciously choose when to leave. They can consciously choose when to leave their body. Some of these yogis in India, they have so much control over their subtle energies that they can do this. But for most, that's like the very advanced yogis. For most, it's uncertain. Their liberation depends on catching the right moment almost by chance. So some can control it perfectly and are able to master this, but others, it's like, well, hopefully I go at the right moment or I'm going to be in trouble. Yeah. And so the yogis that can do this perfectly, that can choose the moment, the circumstance of their departure, they just have very refined consciousness. And so in this section, that's what Krishna's describing. He's describing this more technical or this esoteric side of yoga. And I want to just kind of dig into this a little bit because I find it very interesting. But I think it will also kind of clear up maybe some misconceptions we have about like the mystic yogis in India. Because I kind of want to break down what's actually happening here so that we can understand it a little bit better. So when if we want to understand this kind of technical side of yoga, we have to understand the yogic worldview. And to make sense of this yogic worldview, to make sense of what Krishna is saying here, we have to understand that these paths, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, each path comes with its own worldview, or we can call it its own map of reality, its own map of reality. And a map helps us to navigate territory. Right? A map is useful. We've all used maps. Maybe if you're like super, super young, you haven't used a map. But most of us here have used maps. Yeah, but a map is only useful if it's both accurate and relevant to where we are. So if I'm like trying to find my friend's house in the city and my phone's dead and I have no GPS and I have to use a map, right? But the map that I'm holding shows like soil layers and terrain. It's not that the map is wrong, but it's not super helpful for what I'm trying to do. So in the same way, the yogic system, it gives us a certain map, and this map is accurate within its framework, but it's not always the most relevant or the most accessible for everyone, especially in this current age. But this map is really interesting. Let's talk about this map a little bit. And many of us who have like taken a yoga teacher training or we learn a little bit about this map. But it's not super we don't study it a lot in the Western world. But this is kind of the yogic view of the human body. Okay, the yogic view of the human body is viewed through the lens of chakras. We talked about chakras a little bit. They're subtle energy centers that govern our consciousness and life force. So we have like 7 of them that go down our body, these subtle energy centers. And it's different from the scientific view, which talks about if you can think about all the different scientific maps of the body that there are. You have like the circulatory system, the nervous system. You have like all the bones. You have like all these different maps, right? And so this yogic view of the energy centers, it's a different way of looking at the same reality. So to really understand this idea of this map or this worldview, we also have to recognize something, and that is that what we see depends on what we already know. So like if you're driving a car and the car's making a weird noise, most of us would probably just get annoyed and think, ugh, like what is this? What's going on? But if a trained mechanic heard that same sound, they would immediately recognize what's wrong. They say the belt's slipping or the brakes need adjustment. So the difference isn't in the sound itself, but it's in the knowledge of the person hearing it. Because the mechanic already understands how a car works. Yeah, so like the new information, like that strange sound, it instantly fits into a larger picture. So, bringing it back to the yogis, in the same way, yogis have developed this sensitivity to these subtle energy fields. The vibrations and the currents that flow through and around the body. Yogis are very in tune with these. And these energies are always there, just like that car noise. But most of us don't notice them because we haven't trained our perception in that way. And the yogic worldview, it includes this understanding of these chakras, prana, the aura, the ways of mapping the body, not just as flesh and bone, but as a living field of energy and consciousness. This is the yogic map of the body. So when yogis talk about channeling energy or raising awareness, they're navigating a reality that exists beyond the reach of our ordinary senses. Yet it's just as real to them as mechanical sounds are to a trained engineer. This is how in touch they are with these subtle energies. And if we think about modern science, even that acknowledges that the universe is made of energy and vibration. Every movement, every sound, every thought, it generates these subtle vibrations. So in the yogic understanding, this energetic field around us is called an aura, right? It reflects our state of mind and our consciousness. Sometimes, we'll even see these like in pictures, like people have like this little aura around them. It's a subtle energy field. And the point is that yogis are very in touch with this. And we experience it again, we can experience this subtle energy when we're around certain people, especially if they're peaceful or they're spiritually minded. We just feel calm. They have that subtle energy. Their aura is like that, and their energy field, it's influencing ours. So the yogic process, it teaches that these energies, they can be channeled, they can be purified, they can be elevated for spiritual progress, and that by refining them, one can access these higher dimensions of reality. It's pretty interesting, right? Do you guys think this is pretty interesting? It's not like this like crazy like far away thing that's like kind of hocus pocus. And sometimes it's kind of like we kind of see it like that. And that's also kind of how like Western propaganda can kind of situate it. But like a legit yogi, and you have a lot of people that kind of like fake having being in touch with these subtle energy fields, right? They can fake it because people don't know much about it. So they fake it and then everybody thinks that, it's hocus pocus. But there's actually yogis that have developed this so much that these cities, these yogic cities, these like mystical powers that they can levitate. Like when you go to India, you see these things. This is real. And again, because there's so many fakes, it's kind of got a bad rep, but it's real. They access these higher dimensions, and therefore these things that seem impossible on the normal plane become possible. Because they've developed this mastery over the subtle energies, and they can operate at levels that transcend ordinary physical limitations. So that's these mystic powers. But even the Yoga Sutras caution that these mystic powers are distractions on the spiritual path because they're still material. They're still material, and they're still material because they deal with manipulating matter, not transcending it. So they just tapped into this subtle energy field, but they're still manipulating matter. They're not transcending it. So all this to say, the Ashtanga Yoga path, it's impressive. It's super impressive, but it's heavily focused on material control and redirection. Right? Controlling your breath, the postures, the energy flows. The goal may even be spiritual, but much of the effort is spent on the material level. So that's the Ashtanga Yoga practice. That's Ashtanga Yoga. Super interesting, right? But this is the worldview, the map of this system. But it's not super accessible for this age. It's not super accessible for us. It requires just precise control and like just super high level of discipline to get to this place, which is just most people in this age don't have anymore. So in contrast, we compared this to the bhakti-yoga path. And then this takes a very different approach. Instead of trying to ascend through the different various chakras, right, or manipulate your breath, bhakti focuses on remembering God with love and devotion. And Krishna's already said early in this chapter, whoever remembers me at the time of death comes to me. So that remembrance is what guarantees liberation. It's not the timing of death. It's not the alignment of the stars. It's not the control of prana. It's about technical mastery of. So for Bhakti Yoga, it's not about technical mastery of perfect timing. It's about this heartfelt remembrance and surrender. Again, just remember that analogy with the restaurant owner. It's not about making your reservation weeks ahead of time, showing up at the exact right moment. It's just about establishing your relationship with the owner. So, in short, he's transitioning to describe the different paths and the time of departure for yogis. Those who rely on the material mechanics of yoga, the breath, the energy, the timing, they have to be very precise. But those who rely on Krishna's grace through bhakti simply have to remember him. And that alone ensures liberation. And how much easier is it and sweeter to have a relationship with the restaurant owner than to go through all the hurdles of getting a reservation, getting on the list. It's so much sweeter. And the thing about God is his relationship is available to all of us. It's not like, that you have to be in that person's circle to get in. It's like, no, that relationship is available to all of us if we want it. We can all be best friends with the restaurant owner. We just have to make that decision. We just have to make that choice. And this all becomes available to us. So this is where Krishna is leading Arjuna next. He's showing him how ultimately this remembrance through devotion is far simpler and more powerful than trying to manage these technicalities of time and energy at the moment of death. That's what we're learning here. And it's like such a relief too, right? Because that's a lot. Having to do some of these other yogic paths required a lot. And we just don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about that anymore. What grace, right? We just have to worry about investing in this relationship sincerely, with a sincere and open heart, remembering our constitutional position as a servant of God and living like that in our words, in our actions, in our everyday decisions, in the way that we navigate our relationships. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Such a gift that God gives us in that, right? Does anybody have anything to share? Should we move on to the next? Sorry, the Ashtanga yoga practice, it's not that relatable for us, but I thought good to get into it a little bit so that we really understand why bhakti is the recommended path. But it's interesting too. It's interesting.
I appreciate that you brought it up. I um I didn't really realize like Ashtanga yoga. I mean, I knew it connected with the chakras and stuff, but growing up, there was a healer lady in my area that my mom would go to, and I even saw her once, and um she learned her healing practice through the Barbara Brennan Healing Hands of Light school. And so there's like a whole school that, a modern like woman created in the like I don't know 60s 70s, and she wrote a whole book, and it was all about like being able to heal on the energetic level, being able to see auras and stuff. And she created a school where she taught people about this science. I mean, it's not necessarily completely like Krishna conscious, but even just having a little understanding of the chakras can be so healing on the material level, yes. But when we heal on the material level, if we're doing it so we can be more spiritual, I think it's important. And yeah, I use it a lot, just like sometimes if I'm like overly stressed out or things like that. Because I did a workshop before with her when I was like 19, 20. And yeah, just even feeling into those chakra centers can be so grounding. Like you can use it to really just help get out of the mind and to be grounded. So I mean, I don't even do a ton of breath work or anything, and like I definitely don't see chakras, but I can definitely pick up on the energy of them in myself, and it just helps you be aware of other people's energy a little bit. And I think it's good. I think naturally it's a byproduct actually whenever you start to like chant and open up your consciousness, you naturally become more sensitive to like the energies of things. And so to have a little bit of knowledge of them can be really helpful so that you're not just like, why do I feel everything, or who knows like how it opens people up. But um yes, and I appreciate you bringing it in. And I do think like naturally as we become more conscious, especially Krishna conscious, people become more sensitive to those things, and we don't know why necessarily. And so to learn it and to understand it can be helpful, I think. So,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. So
Thank
nice. Thank you, Mariah.
you.
And so true. Yeah, we all have this. Like we all, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
My sound just went out a little bit. Yeah, we all vibrate at these frequencies, and we notice the energy of different people, different places. So it's definitely real. And this is just taking it to that next level. Like you said, like these people become experts in this map of reality. They become experts, and with that they tap into these higher dimensions and can develop some mystic cities or powers that aren't possible in this dimension. And but I love what you said too. We don't have to we don't have to say this is, witchery, or this is a terrible thing. We could use it in our service to God. And as long as we don't become overly infatuated with it, or we don't put all of our faith into it, understanding that it's ultimately still material, and you know then it could benefit us in our spiritual lives. Yeah, there's so many different uh different, like astrology. It's not the same thing, but it's, it has the inner different energies of planets, and how they affect us. And this, it's a science. I mean, and it's really interesting. And just like that, it can be used as long as we don't put all of our faith into it. That's the important thing. We don't want to take our faith away from God and put it into something material like this. We want to understand that ultimately God is the controller. God is the supreme. And if we put all of our faith into Him, He'll take care of us. But along the way, some of these things can be helpful. So nice. Thank you.
I have something.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. It's Maria. Um,
Maria.
yeah. I had my degree's in computer science, and I was a programmer systems analyst, and I was in that world, and all of a sudden I had to switch. This was back in the late 80s because I had a spiritual awakening, and I realized I was a healer, and that I'd been a healer for millions of years. And so I left computer science behind and went into the healing arts. And I was being led by God the whole way.
Mm,
I knew it, I felt it. And I would feel like all of the lines in people's bodies, the subtle energy. And I felt it all, and I would work with it. And if they were ready to release, they were ready. And if they weren't, they weren't. And miracles were happening. But I never billed myself as a healer, just for massage therapy and Reiki. But yeah, it was awesome because you could just feel all of the subtle energies and which ones were in alignment and which ones weren't. And then you could just gently like say, to the person or whatever. I mean, you're not actually saying it, but you're trying to see if they're ready to release whatever blocks they have. And it was just all amazing.
amazing. That's so amazing.
But then I got into kirtan and I felt the Krishna energy and I just threw that all aside.
Wow. Look at that. You were pulled in by Bhakti.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. That's great. I didn't know all that about you. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. So it's ultimately just like another step up the material ladder. Can be useful, but it's still material. So thank you. Thank you all for sharing. Beautiful. So let's go to the next verse then. Let's go to 24 when you're ready, Stella.
Okay. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery God in the light at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north.
Thank you. So in this verse, Krishna isn't describing again the departure of his devotees. Again, bringing this back, he's speaking mainly about Ashtanga yogis, those who practice this meditation and austerity to realize the impersonal Brahman. So this verse is for the Jnana yogi, the Jnana yogi. So throughout this chapter, Krishna is comparing two paths again, the path of yoga and the path of bhakti. Both lead upward, but Krishna's purpose here is to show again that bhakti is simpler, it's sweeter, it's more dependable. So that's the big picture. Now let's zoom in a little bit to this verse. So according to the Vedas, when a yogi leaves their body, their soul is not just drifting away randomly. The transition is guided through subtle pathways of light that are overseen by different presiding deities, right? Just like there are traffic controllers who oversee trains or flights on different routes. There's different deities along the way that oversee this soul's journey, this soul's transition. So it's like the station masters. If you're taking like a long distance train and there's station masters at every stop who are supervising where the train goes next, this is in the same way these deities governing day, night, fire, light, time, they help guide the soul's movement after death. So when Krishna mentions this day, light, the waxing moon, the northern part of the sun, he's not just describing time, he's referring to these celestial beings who preside over these phenomenon. And the point here is that not every soul is guided along the same route. The path depends on the consciousness of the yogi at the time of death. So if a yogi's cultivated this deep realization of the absolute truth and has developed this conscious connection with these presiding deities through years of purification and meditation and control of the senses, then these deities recognize that consciousness and they guide the yogi upwards towards Brahman, the impersonal spiritual light. Right? It's one of the spiritual destinations. It's like on the outer rim of the spiritual world. The impersonal light. It's like the sun's rays. You remember, it's the energy of the sun's rays. This is the impersonal Brahman, the effulgent light that comes from God. It's like the perimeter of the spiritual world. So that's where the yogis are headed. If everything works out for them and their consciousness is that high. Right? But the key here is purification. The yogic practice is built on the idea that before one can ascend, one must refine, one must purify the body, the mind, the subtle energies through this austerity and this disciplined living. So that's best case scenario. But if a yogi hasn't reached that level of mastery, if their consciousness is still mixed or it's impure, then they can't access this path of light. And in that case, a different set of deities governs their departures, guides them along the route. And that's where what Krishna's going to talk about in the next verse. So this is like best case scenario for the yogi. If they've really refined their consciousness, then they've developed relationships with these deities of light that bring them up towards the effulgent sun rays. But if not, if they haven't quite got there yet, then something else happens. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next verse. Right? So for us, again, this is something for us to think about when we think about spiritual growth. Do we focus more on refining technique or refining consciousness? What truly elevates me? Effort or remembrance? Because if we're so obsessed with refining the technique so that we can be perfect, so that we can look perfect, so that everybody around us knows that we know every word to this song, right? Where's our consciousness in that? Yeah, do we want to know every word to the song so that we can sing it to God with a full heart? Or do we want to know every word to the song so that everyone around us can see that we do and so that we can fit in? It's all about like, where's the consciousness? Are we trying to refine our techniques? Or are we trying to refine our consciousness? We can do both. But let's not forget, the most important here is refining our consciousness. Right? And that's the deeper lesson here. Again, I'm just going to bring back, I keep zooming out so that we see where all this is going in context. Because whether or not you remember what the Ashtanga yoga practice is or what happens when the Ashtanga yogi soul leaves their body, and not so important. Right? But what's important is to understand that the mechanics of the yogic path of liberation depends on timing, purification, cosmic alignment. It's intricate. It's intricate, and it requires great precision and great personal effort. But what's available for us, what the path that Krishna's encouraging us to follow is this path of bhakti, which is completely different. It's just living in God consciousness. And in this, you don't have to worry about timing, technique, control. Whether you pass away by accident or arrangement at an auspicious time or not, it doesn't matter because you've already placed your life, your heart, your destination fully in God's hands. And He never forgets that. So this is the difference. And for us to think, what does it mean for me personally to place my life in God's hands? And where in what area do I still feel afraid to let go? Because this is the ultimate goal. We can achieve actually further destinations in the spiritual sky just from doing this than the yogi does committing their life to this austere discipline, right? This austere perfection and technique. And that's where Krishna's going with all of this. Yeah, so he's contrasting this bhakti yoga where there's no need to calculate auspicious times or to please different deities. Because for the devotee, Krishna himself becomes the guide. Right? The Lord personally carries his devotees beyond this world, beyond both the bright and the dark paths, directly to his eternal abode. So that's where we're going with all of this. But in the meantime, we're learning some interesting things about this Ashtanga yoga path. What are you guys thinking? Does anybody want to share anything before we move on? It's so important in this path that we don't get distracted by perfect technique. We always want to be working towards, bettering ourselves and doing things more sincerely and more in line with sastra. But at the same time, we don't want it to become a distraction that kind of pulls us down or gets us into comparison mentality or because then in that, as soon as we're missing the essence. And when we miss the essence, we're not getting much benefit. Our practices become kind of empty. So this is so important as bhakti practitioners.
Radha, hi. Hi.
Yes.
Sudai, hi.
Sudai.
Hey, I just have a reality to share. Just recently, I I have a far way to go listening to this. Oh my goodness. I have to refine my consciousness. Maybe I am at a zero or a minus, But recently, we talk, and I've heard this a lot, that remembering God, Lord Krishna at the time of death, then you achieve liberation. But it's not a difficult thing. It's not an easy thing to do. Recent experience, at 4 a.m. a few days ago, I woke up feeling like, oh my gosh, palpitation. I can figure out like I am having arrhythmias because like I check my pulse and it's going boom, 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 stop. And I am always very analytic and figuring out what's happening. So I thought of like start chanting and remembering Lord Krishna at this time because I'm figuring like, oh my God, the heart is really working hard and maybe something can pop. Maybe I can die, now. So remembering the class, remembering what I was taught, like from very little, remembering Lord Krishna at this time. So I'm chanting. But it is not an easy thing to do because my mind keeps fluctuating back to different things and everything that is around me because I find that I couldn't sustain that chanting of Lord Krishna. And so it is so difficult. And I figure like afterwards I'm figuring like this is not an easy task. You have to live it. Like you're saying, like you have to be conscious of it all the time. So I know I have so much work to do. I am nowhere near
Mm,
getting to that consciousness. But I would just want to share that it's easily said, but it's very hard to do.
mm.
and not
Wow.
easy to accomplish, So,
What a
um,
blessing, though.
yeah, and I figured that, I mean, this episode lasted like maybe 30 minutes. Um, um, and I know I usually have like very low pulse, like my pulse is like 36/40. And for it to jump to nearly 100 with arrhythmias, which I figure out, I was thinking, oh my goodness, what is going on here? That anytime maybe something can happen and the heart can stop. So I remember that I need to do this chanting, but to sustain it and continue doing it is so difficult because my mind was all over the place. So it
Wow.
is not an easy task. I mean, that's reality. I am always very analytic. So I was like, I'm not trying this. I was genuinely trying to do it, So,
Yeah. Well,
so
it's amazing that, you had the wherewithal to know that that's what you needed to do, and that you had the discipline and commitment to doing it, even though it was hard,
mm,
right?
yeah,
But it's such a gift too that you realized how difficult it is and how important it is to
yeah,
cultivate this
yeah,
consciousness through
yeah.
every
And
moment of our lives. I mean, that's the only way that, yeah.
yes, yeah. So I know I need a lot of work, a
Well,
lot more work.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty normal, but such a beautiful point. Like, it's not like we're like fanatical or, it's like we're just being real. We're being real
Yes.
and we're being sincere in that this is what it takes to actually remember God at the time of death. And and it takes a life of thinking about God, not just on Sundays, not just that once a week. It takes a life of thinking, and that makes sense. We see that in our everyday lives. Like whatever we continually are thinking about, it increases, it increases, it increases, it increases. This is how our brains, our consciousness work. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I
important.
know. Just reality. That's the reality of it.
It's
Yes.
just the reality.
And that's why I like this class because we dwelt with the reality of our everyday life. And the Bhagavad Gita teaches us in this day and time is so relevant. So
Yes,
I
it's
love the
so
class.
relevant.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Suktai. We don't get to hear from you often, so it's so nice to get a share and a reminder for all of us. This experience happened to you, but it could have happened to any of us, and all of us probably would have felt that same way. So let's take that as a wake-up call for all of us that we need to do more of this remembering throughout the day. If we want to get to that place where when it is our final breath, we're peacefully thinking of Krishna, ready to go back home. That's the only way. We have to think of him all the time now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Shakti. Or Shakti. Sukdai. Anybody else want to share before we move on? Okay. Let's move on to the next verse, 25. When you're ready, Stella. Oh, you're on mute, Stella.
Sorry.
No problem.
The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back.
Okay. Thank you. So this is now Krishna is describing the second path. So we just talked about the Ashtanga yogi who follows the path of light, right? Who's really perfected their consciousness, and therefore the presiding deities of light guide them. This is the yogi who hasn't quite got there. He hasn't quite got there. and he leaves during the darker phases, under the influence of smoke or night, the waning moon. The destination here is different. So this verse is referring to those, if we remember this term, karma kandis, people who it's kind of like Amazon Prime relationship with God. Like, I'll give you this and I want this. Give me, it's very materially based. It's kind of just like, I'll do this for you, God, if you grant me a good wife. Right? Or I'll do this for you. Like, this is what I want. Please fulfill my order, God. Thank you. This is the kind of relationship with God. So this person is kind of devoid of spiritual desires. They're not looking for just that relationship with God for the sake of it. They're looking for God to fulfill their material desires. And what happens with these yogis is they travel to the moon planet, where they enjoy the results of their austerities for what's described as like 10,000 celestial years, like a very long stay compared to human time. But even this existence isn't eternal. They have to, when the accumulated merit is exhausted, like all their good karmic credits when they've spent them, we know you have to come back to earth and take birth again. So the heavens is just like a place where you can go spend your good karmic credits. You enjoy for a while, you have to come back. So it's a path of temporary elevation. It's a reward for their sincere effort, but it's not liberation. They enjoy the fruits of their meditation and then they re-enter the cycle of birth and death. So both paths involve great effort, discipline, awareness. Both types of yogis strive for perfection and higher consciousness, but the difference lies in the timing and the level of realization. So those who've mastered their consciousness completely and leave at the auspicious time, they travel the path of light. They reach Brahman and freedom. But those who haven't perfected it, they go through this path of darkness, or whose timings haven't aligned. Like some yogis get lucky and their timing's just aligned, and they get. But if you haven't perfected, you can't control it. You go in this path of darkness. You still rise to elevated realms, like the moon planet. You're still enjoying, but not beyond the material universe. So it's all still material. Again, I'm going to bring us back to the big picture. Krishna's purpose here isn't for us to get caught in the celestial logistics. He's just showing us the contrast, and he's preparing to make his point clear in the next verse that both of these paths, bright and dark, belong to the material world, right? Neither one offers eternal freedom. It's only bhakti-yoga, the path of loving remembrance of God, that carries the soul beyond the temporary cycles of light and darkness and beyond the impersonal Brahmajyoti to the eternal realm of personal relationship with him. So even if you're a perfect yogi, if you hit the perfection of yoga, you still just hit this impersonal Brahmajyoti. You don't get beyond that to this eternal realm of personal relationship with God. And that's the destination for bhakti yogis. So not only is it easier, but even the final destination is like, it's far superior. So let's do one more verse and then let's hear some reflections. This last verse kind of encapsulates this section. And then we'll hear some final reflections. Whenever you're ready, Stella.
According to Vedic opinion, there are two ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back. But when one passes in darkness, he returns.
Perfect. Thank you. So, two ways of leaving this world, one through light and one through darkness. And it's important we don't want to take this like too literally when he talks about the time of day or night, summer or winter. Because even within that, like there can be some contradictions that make it confusing. So what the acharyas explain is that he's not just describing calendar times, but different paths, different destinations for the soul. And the path of darkness represents those who remain bound to material existence. They may practice spiritual life, but their consciousness is still clouded by attachment and forgetfulness of God. And these souls return to the cycle of birth and death. And the other path, the path of light, it refers to yogis and seekers who attain higher, subtler realms beyond the material world, particularly the Brahmajyoti, the spiritual effulgence of the Lord. That's the sunlight, the sun rays, right? The Lord's effulgence, this spiritual realm. These souls are liberated from matter, and for a time they don't return. But even that liberation is incomplete because within this impersonal conception of God, there's no personal relationship. There's no loving exchange. There's no service to God. They're peaceful, right? But they don't have that reciprocal relationship with God in that place. And eventually, because the soul yearns for that, the soul yearns for real connection. The soul becomes restless and eventually will return to the material activity in search of fulfillment. So even that, even though it's spiritual, even though it's, they're out of this cycle of birth and death for some good time, even that, the soul is not complete. Um let's see. Only those who cultivate this bhakti yoga, this love and remembrance of God, go beyond these two paths altogether. Because the devotee doesn't depend on timing, method, cosmic alignment. Their consciousness itself becomes the path of light. Because wherever there's remembrance of Krishna, there's liberation. So in the end, it's not about dying at the right time. It's about living in the right consciousness, just like Sukdai said. Just like Sukdai said. And this is for us to think about, how often we get caught up in external details, trying to time things right instead of tending to the quality of my inner connection. How often do we try to manipulate our environments, the variables around us? We may not be playing in these subtler dimensions, but still we are trying to manipulate the variables around us, saying if this was set up just like this, my spiritual life would be perfect. But instead of trying to tend to the inner quality of our connection, this is what Krishna's trying to get us to recognize. We don't have to get so caught up in all those external details. Right? Whether we do this service, whether we live here or we live there, not so important. Not so important. No, what's important is wherever we live, whatever service we're doing, are we tending to the quality of that inner connection? Because we don't want to get caught up in manipulating matter so that things can be just right. Because that's what the Ashtanga yogi does. And their destination, I mean, it's a tough path, and their destination at best is the Brahmajyoti, the spiritual effulgence. They're not even getting to the ultimate destination. Yeah. What do you think, Stella?
There were a couple of things in there. I was thinking how much that applies to a good marriage too. That you don't get like caught up in like it should be this way with a date night and a certain amount of hours and if what blah all these things when really it should be whether you're together or not, thinking about your spouse with affection and cultivating that inner, you know so that whatever the circumstance is, whether you haven't gone out to dinner for 6 months, it doesn't matter. You feel falling more in love with them because you're thinking about them and how to serve them, and just with warmth and affection. That's all. That other stuff will happen naturally. And maybe there are some marriages that need that structure, like the Astanga. Sometimes you need to breathe, and stay still and all that. But that's not what makes the best relationship in and of itself.
Yeah. What a nice connection. And so that we've all seen and can all experience, or have. Yeah, like sometimes you're feeling disconnected from your spouse. You're thinking, I need this date night, and it's like really you just need to like get in a room together and talk and open your hearts.
And open your heart, even if you're not together. Open your heart and your mind.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you,
What do you think?
there's so many golden nuggets. I'm forgetting them one after the other. But the consciousness itself creates their path of light. And that's beautiful and really true. Thank you.
Yes. Consciousness itself creates the path of light. Yes. Thank you.
And that's our problem because Kalachandji's brother told us that we'd been together for 7 lifetimes. And
Wow.
even during this podcast, we're like, we get distracted by looking at each other.
Whoa.
And so when we think of each other, so we're at the time of death, we're thinking of each other. We keep switching genders because, each of us was the opposite gender, and you become the opposite gender in the body. And it's
Wow. It's like
so it's
such a
kind of like
blessing,
this.
but
It is, but we were really laughing because it was sort of like uh we've been told that, and it's like it's true. We can't, but we're trying to keep Krishna right in our center, right? So that maybe when we look at each other, he'll be right there in the middle.
aw, that's beautiful. That's the best we can do, and just to pray about it. Just to pray about it. Yeah. That's so nice. I like that point too, because when I first got in, and it was like I remember a Swami who was passing his body, and he didn't want any ladies to come into the room because they were getting his like lady disciples. They were like getting really emotional, and it was kind of pulling his consciousness. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cold. But but as the further that I advance, the more that I understand, like it's not that these things are bad or that we have to become cold, or it's just that we have to become so fixated on God, on the ultimate goal, that if things are pulling our consciousness in a different direction, we it's not always what we want. It's not always what we want. And yeah, even a good marriage is amazing. It's such a blessing, but ultimately we want it to remind us of Krishna. Because if not, then we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back. Thank you. Shakti, what do you have for us?
um, it's very similar to what Stella was saying. It's like, sometimes I come down here. Well, always I come down and I come on the call, and then George will come down and just lay here to be, because he wants, and then he'll put his hand out just so that he can be touching me and be next to me. And then I'm like, sometimes I'll take his hand off because I'm like, I can't really focus on what you're talking about when his hand is like big, when he puts his hand on me, because then I'm thinking about him. So, and I try, and I had to explain to him why I was doing that, so he wasn't feeling maybe hurt because he's, not understanding. And then he'll go upstairs, and then he'll kiss me, and I'm like, you can't do it. We're on camera. No, then again, that takes my focus away. And then also, I don't want to be like kissing on camera. And then he's ready to leave for work. And once again, he comes over and he's wanting to kiss me. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm grateful for it. But like you said, Stella, it then takes my consciousness away from, like, I'm sitting here and I'm listening and I'm really hearing what you're saying and I'm feeling so connected. And then all of a sudden I look up and there's George and I'm like, and then my consciousness goes into another direction. And it's a wonderful challenge to work through. Um, but I feel so grateful to, you know, through this definitely this podcast, to learn the tools and learn, and through other things, learn, like, really knowing, okay, this is what takes my consciousness away, and then just having to share that with him so that he understands that it's not, I'm not poo-pooing him, I'm not disliking him, I'm just saying, hey, I need this time to focus on Krishna and what we're talking about, and not lovey-dovey, whatever it may be. And so, yeah, I totally relate to what you were saying. So I was, when you were
Yeah,
talking.
and
So,
it's funny too because if I can remember, I'll remember to say, "Wow, I wish I felt like this about Krishna."
Hmm.
Like this is why it's just. I mean, it's an actual person here, and we know Krishna's a person, but we also sometimes just want to hug him.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
nice.
But I will say, I mean, sometimes not as often not as often as I'd like. Um, I do have that feeling when I'm really just within myself and I'm at a temple and we're really glorifying Krishna. I
Yeah.
can feel that love and that connection like through the soul, almost like soul to soul. Um, but yeah, I wish I had it more for
Yeah.
So sweet.
Horrible.
sure.
Very Such nice shares. Thank you both. Anybody else before we end? Mariah, do you have any final nuggets for us?
Not so much today, but it's just a beautiful class. I mean, again, this whole chapter has just been like, here's the difference between trying to do things yourself through,
Hmm.
material yogic processes. And here's the elevator ride, like you always say, and it's just like, uh, it's so beautiful for me in my personal life, really seeing that sink in and really getting clear on that understanding. Because for so long I was like, do these things go hand in hand? You need to do like both. And now it's like, no, just like give Krishna your heart. And like, it's really just so sweet. And I get so caught up in like, oh, I need to be so regimented. I need to be like, trying to have a kirtan in my house or like chant at the certain perfect time. And I'm just not there yet. I'm a mom, I work. I'm just not there. But Krishna still sees and accepts every little bit that I do try to do. And Suktai, thank you for sharing. Man, that's heavy and scary that you woke up that way. And it is difficult to remember Krishna at the time of death or during a hard moment like that, but you did remember. Like, yeah, it was hard to focus, but the fact that you tried, like, that doesn't go unnoticed. Krishna sees every little effort, and that's what's so beautiful about this process. So, thank you all.
Thank
Oh,
you. Thank you
perfect.
all.
Such a perfect way to end. I'm not even going to say anything after that. Thank you. Thanks, Mariah. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming and sharing your hearts and being brave on this path. Not easy. Thank you all.
Thank you. Haribol.